Hello, I'm Cassandra Joan Butler, and like many of you, I have been overwhelmed by the eclipse season, which began in September, and it began with that emotional full moon lunar eclipse on the 7th of September. Sabian symbol, the flow of inspiration is being experienced as a person's in the quiet of their study. So it's been a very reflective time. And I think, and I've taught for many years, during eclipse seasons, there are often pivotal dates, pivotal events, which reflect the astrology of the moment. So the astrology in 2025 is all about balancing Virgo with Pisces. And Pisces, the North Node, is asking us to practice the Piscean positive qualities of intuition, unconditional love, forgiveness, and connection with God. Pisces is the spiritual sign of the zodiac, and to let go of the negative aspects of the South Node, which is Virgo. And what's negative Virgo? Well, positive Virgo is organized. Virgo is analytical. Negative Virgo is self-critical and critical and nasty and hate speech and negativity. That's negative Virgo. So we've seen both of these pillars being activated in September. And today, as I'm recording this, we're hours away from the second eclipse, a solar eclipse, a time of grounding in Virgo, a positive new beginning after releasing. As you may well expect me to say, the pivotal event was the horrific loss of Charlie Kirk through an assassin's bullet. Now, to be honest, I wasn't that aware of Charlie Kirk. I knew his name. I think I saw a couple of interviews, but I didn't realize the depth of this person's character. And of course, as any astrologer does, we try to figure out their charts. And I think I have stumbled upon, using rectification, his chart. So I want to share it with you and talk about Charlie Kirk through the lens of astrology. So let's take a peek at his chart. Okay. All right. This is his natal chart, I believe, with a 6 p.m.-ish time of birth. Of course, this is speculation, but it certainly seems to fit. Let me explain. And I have some notes on the right. You can read those if you are an astrologer. So understand what you're looking at if you're not an astrologer is a map of the sky when a person is incarnated, comes into this world, and it is my belief that we are created in the image of God using a paintbrush of 360 degrees on a wheel, and each degree has what's called a meaning, a Sabian symbol. Uh, Mark Edmund Jones was a minister, astrologer, artist, Renaissance man. They were in meditation and prayer, and they came up with 360 word pictures for each of the degrees on the wheel. So Charlie Kirk's degree is a child giving birds a drink at a fountain, a child giving birds a drink at a fountain. He started his empire, Turning Point USA, or yeah, I think it's Turning Point USA, when he was 18 years old. He was still theoretically a child, but such a grown-up child at that. And it turned into this amazing influence around the entire globe. But there's a very spiritual connotation about giving birds a drink, at giving the water of life, giving information. And it's interpretation by Mark Edmund Jones that this degree of 21 degrees of Libra is living a life of service. And from what I can ascertain and learn about the people who knew him best and was his Christian faith, and wanting to give people a refreshment of a different point of view, especially on college campuses. Um, he aligned with the Tea Party leader way back when in 2012. By the way, that also chorused you because Pluto, the power planet, was just entering his career house in 2012 when Turning Point was first birth of that particular organization. And again, in my perspective, for those of you who are not astrologers, everything has a beginning point, an incarnation, states, city. So if he were born around this time, this would give him a rising sign or a packaging, a spiritual uniform, which was Aries, the pioneer, the entrepreneur, the passionate one. And Aries rising is very much described as being what? Courageous. Those are words you use to describe Charlie over and over. 18 degrees, we don't know the degree, but we do know that the part of spirit was rising in this chart if indeed he were to be in Aries rising at 6 p.m. Okay, we go on. Charlie Kirk was born during a mini cycle in astrology. The mini cycle was when the planet of imagination and spirituality and faith was combined of science, technology, the masses. It was called the Uranus-Neptune conjunction, and it peaked at the very end of October. He was born in the middle of October. And so here it is. Neptune, Uranus, dreaming a new dream, creating a new reality. Capricorn is about authority, being a new authority in this new way, in this new career house. You're born in the 93 era, really beginning in 89 to 94-ish. All those little young people are now in their early 30s and that grew up in front of this, the computer, right? My generation was the TV. My parents' generation was the radio. See, technology is the ruling planet that's represented here by Uranus. So guess what? This dreaming a new dream was clearly in Charlie Kirk's career house. And when Turning Point was founded, the power planet, first time in 250 years, moved into his career house. Whoa, a little bit of evidence there. The other thing people spoke of him over and over is ideas, his beliefs. However, he was devoted to speech, to communication, to sharing, to interfacing with people on a one-to-one. A one-to-one type of person is a Libra. Now, he's a double Libra. I'll get to that in a moment. But his sun, if he were born at that point, was being noticed in the sky near the western horizon. In other words, he is others, living a life of service, always about the others, and dialoguing. And so with this particular chart, his sun is in the seventh house of others, his moon, Virgo. People describe him as being extraordinarily a workaholic, but always in a gracious Libran way. What do you think? Libra is the sign of etiquette. It's the sign of grace. It's the sign of others. The amazing marriage with Erica. Another little bit of evidence. I'm not putting the charts up, but I took a look at their wedding date, which was May 8th. The year escapes me. I think it was 2021. That day, the moon was in the sign of Aries when they exchange vows, and that would be emotionally triggering his Aries rising. And Erica Kirk is an Aries moon. Okay, more evidence. All right, so balsamic, what does that mean? Balsamic phase, when the sun and the moon are gradually moving towards the new cycle when the sun, the moon are exactly together. We know this no matter what time he was born, that the moon was behind the sun. Being behind the sun seed phase, meaning these are the individuals who are visionaries and plant seeds. And he certainly was described as a visionary. They have this sometimes very strong God directed desire to do something good in the world, but sometimes they're not ego driven. And I didn't hear very many words like that describing Charlie. But it's behind the scenes, moving forward no matter what. So we have that in his chart. He's definitely born under the eighth phase of balsamic, the seed planter. I already talked about sun, moon. Oh, here's something. Sun and moon were next to Santa Claus planet. I call Jupiter the Santa Claus planet because it's literally the largest planet. And it represents beneficence, luck, generosity. He sounded much more like an evangelical preacher than a political pundit. But Jupiter literally, all right, so it's very close to his about him because people would often feel that they were not equally matched when they would get into the debating arena with Charlie Kirk, because after all, I mean, the guy's smart, connect with someone and be a reasonable adversary in a debate format. Well, you know what? That was what he did because that was his destiny, a truth seeker. His North Node was in the sign of Sagittarius. Look at his talks node. His DNA was filled with factors. Man, that guy knew a lot at his fingertips. He was coached by running him. He was always cutting to the and I continue. All right. Sorry about that. I want to continue with his chart and bring that up to you. Here we go. Definitely had that incredible sense of truth seeking, truth seeking because of the Sagittarius North Node. That was his destiny. In what? The house of the eighth. And the house of the eighth, friends, represents transformation. It's also what we call the one of the death houses. So legitimately, his movement, his organization has exploded since his passing. And of course, his widow, Erica, is saying unequivocally, uh, the Charlie Kirk vision will not die with his death. Oftentimes, when we have a North Node that someone's passing or working in the death field, a death doula, for example, could be another way of interpreting this, but that his death was galvanizing him to go forward. Alrighty. The criticism people had, like I said, that he was sometimes so adamant and so passionate and so on fire about his beliefs. A man who talks for a living would sometimes misspoke, I would think. Well, look at this. Mars conjunct next to Mercury. Mercury is the way we speak, and Mars has that adjective quality of passionate and intense and focused and sometimes warlike. Like, I believe this. Very evangelical in some of his talks. Mars conjunct Mercury, opposite Sedna, an outer planet, which represents a mythology, a story about resurrection. In that case, it's not Jesus resurrecting and rising. Sedna, the princess of a king in the North Country of Eskimo, told by her father because she would not submit to what he wanted her to do, which was to get married. And she said, "No, I want sovereignty." And but then she rose again as the queen of the North waters. So it's a redemption myth, it's a resurrection myth that's aligned with Charlie's very dogged, determined, passionate style of communication. A couple more aspects. His career planet is Saturn, the grumpy old man or the authority planet in our chart. Next to, guess what? Vesta. Vesta is spirituality. I want to be an authority, advocate for others through the Aquarian lens. Aquarius is the sign of the people, it's the public, it's society, it's the world. A passionate desire to help everyone. All right. So he also had there's an asteroid in Jesus, and the Christian asteroid is actually opposite his 10th house. It's his house of home. So having a Christian home base and reflecting back into his is very strong there indeed. Let's see, I will go on. Let's see. Okay. Let's see if I can go on to the next slide. And I want to do the progress chart, the progress chart of Charlie Kirk. So in astrology, when we progress our birth chart, we go forward in it, and every year of life, we add on, life, and we also add on experience in a new way. So I'm just going to put um, his progress chart here. Okay. New share. Okay. So you could see how his chart has progressed now in 2025. A Gemini rising, the talker, the speaker, the communicator, the teacher, the writer, and his moon was in the sign of has Pluto, the planet of death, and the sun was coming up to the planet of death in the sign of Scorpio through his work. So that would imply death or transformation while he was working. And a lot of Scorpio energy in his chart, both natally and progressed. Keeping this in mind, this guy was a researcher. He was a Scorpio Mercury conjunct Mars, always researching. Today, we are marking his memorial service on the solar eclipse. And the solar eclipse, friends, is at 29 degrees of Virgo. And it means a grounding after letting go of in your own lives or witnessing it out there. Negative Virgo is being released as we reground, reboot, and happens to fall at 29 degrees, which happens to fall right there on Charlie Kirk's Venus. He's going to be surrounded by love at this memorial service on this solar eclipse today. Each of you identifying where 28 degrees falls in your chart, 29 degrees of Virgo, because that is the time in your chart to cement and grow the seeds of positive Virgo. Today, Sunday, 4:54 Eastern Time, the solar eclipse. Many blessings.